everyone, it's time for an English lesson. And today with you, Anzhelika Buravenko from school number 219. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about one of the famous capitals of the world, London. I'm sure that you have already known a lot of information about this great city, but I still hope that you will find out a lot of interesting facts about it during our lesson today. And by the end of this lesson, you will be able to talk about some facts of London and to describe its marvelous, interesting attractions. So let's start. Everyone knows that London is the capital of the United Kingdom, but also it is the capital of England. It is situated in the southeast of England and stands on the River Thames. It is the largest city of Britain and one of the largest cities in the world. It is also the oldest city of Britain and one of the oldest cities in the world. It was built in the 1st century. At first, the name of the city was Londinium. As you can see, the river has here the narrowest part, and it is a perfect place to build a bridge. So, what the Romans did, they built the bridge, and then they built some roads and some routes to connect this settlement with the rest of Britain. Actually, it was at the Roman times, it was the capital of Roman Britain. Londinium was the capital. This city has a long and interesting history. Now it is a big industrial city and one of the most popular cities for tourists in the world. The most important parts of London are the West End, the City of London, the city is the oldest part, the East End, and Westminster. Well, let's start with the city. City is the oldest part of London. In 1666, it suffered from the Great Fire of London. As buildings at that time were made of wood, 80% of the city was destroyed. And now the city is a business center of London, and lots of people commute every morning to work there. You can find here a lot of banks, offices, business centers. Well, look at this diagram. Here you can see the Great Fire of London. It started on Sunday and continued up to Wednesday, the 5th of September. Well, it was a severe fire and a lot of churches, houses and cathedrals were destroyed, but fortunately only few people died. Well, let's go on. The West End is the richest part of London. You can find the best shops, theaters, cinemas, museums, fine parks and squares there. It has a vibrant cultural life. Well, next is the East End. The East End is the part of London where working people live. It is not as rich as the other parts of London. There are lots of factories and plants there. Streets are narrow and houses are small. Next is Westminster. It is a political and administrative center of London. You can see here 10 Downing Street, the residence of the Prime Minister, the Buckingham Palace, the residence of the Queen, and of course Westminster Abbey. As I have already said, London has got a long and interesting history, and of course it can offer tourists a lot of interesting places, landmarks, museums, parks, monuments, and of course sites, churches and cathedrals. Well, the first and one of the most important London site is the Tower of London. It was a fortress, a prison, and the King's Zoo. Now it is a museum. William the Conqueror built it in the 11th century. He called it the White Tower. There are always ravens in the tower, actually. People believe that London will be rich as long as ravens are there. In the Tower of London, I mean. Well, next is one of the greatest churches of London and of Britain, it's St. Paul's Cathedral. The famous English architect Sir Christopher Wren built it after the Great Fire of London. There are 12 bells. They weigh up to 3 tons each and were the heaviest in the world when they were installed in 1878. They are rung 3 times each Sunday and, of course, on national occasions, for example, at the Queen's 80th birthday. The bells have only been silenced in wartime. Next is Trafalgar Square. Trafalgar Square is the central square of London. And in the middle of the square you can see a tall column. It is the monument to Admiral Nelson. There are also 4 bronze lions and 2 fountains in the square. Next is the Houses of Parliament. The Houses of Parliament is a place where the British government sits. It consists of 3 parts: the royal apartments, the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Well, and next is Big Ben. It is a clock in the tower and it is the big bell. You can hear it every hour. People are allowed to get inside the tower so that they can see the work of the clock. So, you can get the tour to the tower to see what is inside, but there are no lifts and there are 340 steps, so you have to be sporty to climb up there. Well, let's move on. Next we have Westminster Abbey. Westminster Abbey is the symbol of England. This magnificent and world-famous building is England's most important church and has been the site of every coronation since that of William the Conqueror in 1066. Known as the House of Kings, the Abbey was the final resting place of 17 monarchs. Some of famous people were buried there as well, like poets and writers. Actually, it is believed that there are around 3,300 people buried in the church and its cloisters. Well, and now, Buckingham Palace. It is the residence of the royal family and the Queen of England and the United Kingdom. The balcony of Buckingham Palace is one of the most famous balconies in the world. The first recorded royal balcony appearance took place in 1851. Actually, it was Queen Victoria who started this tradition to appear on the balcony during the festivals, holidays and special occasions. Changing of the guards takes place every day in front of the palace. And the palace is open to the public, only in summer actually. One of the most recognizable sights of London is the London Eye. It is one of the biggest observation wheels in the world. It is situated on the banks of the River Thames in central London. It is 135 meters high and you can have a marvelous view of the whole city. Well, next we have the Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is the most famous bridge across the Thames and it is the most recognizable site of London as well. It was built 125 years ago with giant movable roadways that lift up for passing ships. The bridge is raised 850 times every year. Okay, let's move on. London is famous for its parks, and the largest in London is Hyde Park. It is one of the most popular places for Londoners on hot summer days. There are lots of lakes with ducks in the park. People like to sit by the lake feeding ducks or walk around the park, or just have a picnic on the green grass under the trees, enjoying nature. Well, our next site is Madame Tussaud's museum. It is the most famous museum in the world. All the models in it are made of wax. There are copies of famous singers, actors, actresses, and of course politicians. You can go in and take a photo of your favorite actor or actress, or maybe a selfie. And now let's revise what landmarks you remember. Well, look at the screen. Here we have Tower Bridge. Where is it? It's here. Well, Tower Bridge. Well, Westminster Abbey. We have it here. Westminster Abbey. Well, London Eye, one of the highest observation wheels in the world. Well, we have here Hyde Park with green grass and ducks on the lakes. Well, one of the most recognizable sites, Tower of London, Tower, or the White Tower. Well, next we have Buckingham Palace, the residence of the royal family, London residence. Well, here we have Trafalgar Square. Well, and you can see the monument to Admiral Nelson. Well, we have Big Ben here. Big Ben, where are you? Here it is, Big Ben. Okay. Also, we have British Museum. Actually, British Museum is the most famous museum. You can see there everything, even the Egyptian mummy. Well, next we have, the last one, is Piccadilly Circus. Piccadilly Circus is the famous square, and a lot of theaters, cinemas, shows and exhibitions are situated there. Well, and in this name, circus means circle. You were just great today. Thank you for your work. In London, there are much more interesting places and sites. Find some unusual information and start a super project about this great city. It will be your home task. At today's lesson, we talked about London and its landmarks. So don't forget about your project. And goodbye.